You know, it's really something when a new anime game releases and it actually feels like a complete product. Now that doesn't mean Demon Slayer Hinokami Chronicles 2 is perfect, far from it, but it's certainly a breath of fresh air in a time when most anime games can't even launch in a reasonably working state. Here, we're getting a fully fleshed out story mode, great visuals, an expanded character roster, simple yet smooth gameplay, and of course, some less than desirable online netcode. All that being said, Hinokami Chronicles 2 is a pretty solid package. Hinokami Chronicles 2 is of course a sequel to 3D arena fighting game Hinokami Chronicles, yet again developed by CyberConnect 2 and published by Sega rather than the go-to anime game publisher Bandai Namco. They couldn't get their grubby little fingers on this anime license, and as a sequel the gameplay remains largely unchanged. It plays very similarly to the Naruto Storm series, with one-button basic attacks and a few special moves. A lot of the combat comes down to parrying, shoving, and grabbing, trying to get through your opponent's guard and punishing. And it's pretty simple to learn and execute combos. While the gameplay does seem simple, it, well, is. It's no Dragon Ball FighterZ, I'd even argue it's no Bleach Rebirth of Souls, but simplicity doesn't hold it back from having a level of strategy to it. It's an easy to learn, difficult to master type of situation. And like I mentioned before, it is pretty much the same as the original, just with a couple of new mechanics like dual ultimates, which are simply ultimates that some characters can perform together. It's nothing really new, nothing really inventive or innovative, but it's nice to have. Where this game really excels though is in its story mode. As is standard for a CyberConnect 2 joint, we get an incredibly cinematic story mode. Where the first game covered the beginning of the story up to the Mugen Train arc, here we cover the Entertainment District through the Hashira training arc, along with confirmation of an Infinity Castle arc DLC on the way. Now normally I would call this DLC out for being unfairly delayed, as in it should have just been in the base game, but seeing as that arc of the anime hasn't been released as of this game's release, I can cut it some slack. The story mode plays very similar to the first game's story mode, just obviously with different story content. There are exploration segments, regular battles, boss fights, and minigames, all of which are accompanied and strung together by well-animated cutscenes. The only anime screenshot slideshows here are for extra unlockable content. The whole presentation of the story mode is very cinematic and is a pretty solid retelling of the original anime storyline. While I don't think it's very compelling for non-fans of the series, if you are a fan, then you're definitely going to enjoy replaying the story. As for the gameplay structure of the story mode, it's pretty solid. Most anime games will simply be a series of regular battles after regular battles, but Hinokami Chronicles 2 keeps things more interesting. There are exploration bits where you can explore places like the Entertainment District or the houses of said district. You get to use the main character's unique abilities to search the areas, to further the story, and also find extra unlockables. Some of which are kind of lame, but others let you customize your Slayer ID. There are some light RPG mechanics like items that give you certain buffs in battle. You can also level up your individual character's mastery, which nets you rewards, most of which are to further customize your Slayer ID, but others are more worthwhile like costumes. While the explorable areas aren't anything really massive, it's still a nice change of pace from simply fighting regular battles over and over. There are also other additions that can help keep the story mode from getting stale. There are minigames such as a rhythm game playing the shamisen, and there are boss battles with unique enemies and quick time events. As long as you're not expecting a AAA worthy story mode, then Hinokami Chronicle 2's story mode is going to be a fun time, especially in comparison to the vast majority of other anime game story modes. In terms of other game modes available, you of course have Versus mode, which you can face off against CPU opponents or another local player. There's also your standard survival / arcade modes. Either try and beat a certain number of opponents in one health bar, or just see how many you can go up against. There's another game mode called Hashira Training, where essentially each of the Hashira have 3 different stages you can traverse through. Each stage is a spider web of different matches and rewards. You use one health bar throughout each match, and each time you win a match, you choose how to progress. Most spaces are more battles, but some include rewards, buffs, health, etc. And in the end, you face off against the chosen Hashira. It's a neat little game mode. Of course, it is just one battle after another, but the rewards and different paths you can take at least make it a little more interesting. And finally, for game modes, there's a short one called The Path of a Demon Slayer, consisting of 5 different battles that tell a recap of what the first game covered. It reuses cutscenes from the first game and is a nice little addition for those who either didn't get to play the first game, or those who simply want a quick retelling of the beginning of the story. It's not going to sell anyone on this game, but it's certainly a welcome addition. As for the character roster of this game, there's a total of 40 playable characters as opposed to the first game's 31. The new additions cover the new arcs that the first game's DLC didn't fully cover. What annoys me the most about this roster though, is that for some reason, there are new Academy characters and they still have their own character slots instead of just being costume swaps. What I do like though, is that they've promised Muzan will be a playable character in a future free update. How nice of CyberConnect 2 and Sega to give away a precious playable character for free. Take notes, Bandai. Yes, I am aware that Jujutsu Kaisen Curse Clash also gave away free characters, but it's funnier to rag on Bandai Namco. But I've been delaying the inevitable here by saving the worst for last. the online. For starters, there is no crossplay. Come on, it's 2025, can anime games please start including crossplay? It would help dramatically with extending these games' lifespans. And second of all, the netcode just sucks. Out of all the matches I played, I experienced some sort of lag or delay. There was one match where the entire time, I kid you not, there was a full second of delay. I did get to play some matches that only had the occasional delay here and there, but like, is it some unwritten rule that every anime game has to use the worst netcode known to man? In the end though, the question that arises is this really worth $60? I'd say this is a good, solid game. If you like Demon Slayer, you will genuinely have fun with this one. The story mode is a great retelling with gorgeous visuals and an interesting enough gameplay loop that it's worth replaying the story that you already know. The gameplay, while simplistic in nature, is easy enough to learn while still having some level of depth to it. There are a number of unlockables and additional game modes to keep you engaged in playing this game. The online, while kind of playable, could definitely be better. I'd say this game would be fully worth it at a price of about $40. It doesn't do much to improve on the formula of the first game, and at times can feel like a glorified add-on, but to be fair, it does give you a full new campaign and a number of new characters. Hinokami Chronicles 2 isn't perfect, but it's sure as hell better than most new anime game releases. If you're a big fan of Demon Slayer, this is a game I wouldn't feel guilty recommending at full price. Sure, it can be improved in some ways, but I think it's worth rewarding the games that do provide a full fun experience when the competition, Bandai Namco, is scraping by doing the bare minimum, if even that. The way that these Hinokami Chronicle games have been releasing, and the way that the Naruto Storm games release, remind me a lot of those yearly sports titles, where the new game is kind of just the old game, but with like, you know, new characters, new content, stuff like that. And I feel like that's why these games are always priced at $60, because, you know, it's just the standard. Everyone's just grown accustomed to that. And I think that's kind of ridiculous, because Demon Slayer Hinokami Chronicles 2, while I did just say I would recommend it for $60 at full price to Demon Slayer fans, I don't really think it's worth $60. I think $40 would be a much more fair price to pay for this game. But like I said, the industry and gamers are just so accustomed to paying $60 for a brand new video game that companies are just going to title it $60 anyways, no matter what, without having any leeway there. I think that's the problem with these games. I think games need to have more tiered pricing, where the yearly release should not be $60 every time. The sequels that basically just do the same thing the first game did but with more characters should not be $60 every single time. They should be $50, $40, $30, heck, I don't know. Just make it some tiered pricing. Not every single new game has to be $60, because not every single new game is $60 worth of quality, $60 worth of content. It's just not. Dude, Mario Kart World costs $80. What are we doing, man?